Have you ever looked at one of the world's most advanced fighter jets and just wondered, how do they stay hidden? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the Dassault Rafale and the incredible piece of tech that gives it an almost magical power. We're talking about its invisible weapon. So let's just jump right in with the biggest question of all. How in the world do you make a 20-ton hunk of metal, screaming through the sky at almost twice the speed of sound, just, well, disappear from enemy radar? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But the answer is very real, and it's all down to a truly revolutionary system. And the answer, in one word, is Spectra. Now, you can't just point to one box on the jet and say that's Spectra. It's not a single thing. It's a fully integrated electronic warfare suite. The best way to think about it is as the jet's central nervous system. It's the digital shield that protects it, and it's the powerful brain that guides it. This is exactly why they call it the invisible weapon.
You know, to put this in terms that might be more familiar, especially if you're into tech or IT, you can think of Spectra as a kind of unified threat management system, or a UTM. It's like the most sophisticated, most powerful firewall, antivirus, and intrusion detection system all rolled into one, except it's designed to work for a fighter jet pulling high G turns at Mach 1.8.
Okay, so a digital shield sounds cool, but how does it actually work? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how Spectra both senses threats from every direction and then cloaks the aircraft, basically creating this invisible protective bubble. So try to put yourself in the cockpit for a second. Spectra is your co-pilot. It's constantly listening, picking up the faintest electronic whispers of an enemy radar sweeping the sky. It's watching for the telltale glint of a targeting laser painting your jet. It can actually see the heat blooming from an incoming missile's engine. And if any of those threats get a little too close for comfort, it can blast out a storm of electronic noise to completely blind and confuse them. All right, so it can see threats, it can jam them. That is seriously impressive, no question. But that's not exactly invisibility, is it? How does it make the jet literally vanish from a radar screen? Well, this is where things get really, really cool. This really gets down to two completely different schools of thought on stealth. On the one hand, you have geometric stealth, which you see on jets like the F-35. The entire shape of the aircraft is designed to physically bounce radar waves away like a weirdly shaped mirror. But the Rafale does something different, something called digital stealth. Spectra doesn't just deflect the radar wave. It listens to it, analyzes it, and then transmits a perfect countersignal to cancel it out completely. So, what does this actually mean for the poor operator on the other end staring at their screen? Well, because of this active cancellation, the Rafale might just not be there. It's a total blank. Or Spectra can get really creative and generate false returns, making one single jet look like a whole swarm of 50 planes. Can you imagine the chaos that would cause? It proves you don't have to look like a stealth fighter to be a stealth fighter. So, having these incredible senses is one half of the puzzle. But collecting all that information is useless if you can't make sense of it in a split second. And this is where Spectra shifts from just being a shield to becoming the actual brain of the machine. It all comes down to a process called data fusion. First, it gathers everything. Data from the main radar, the infrared sensors, all the Spectra EW sensors. Then it analyzes this absolute flood of information, checking it all against a built-in encrypted library of known threats. And finally, it advises the pilot. It prioritizes the biggest dangers and suggests the best possible move. This all happens in a fraction of a second, turning a fire hose of raw data into a simple, clear picture of the battlefield. And what does that feel like for the pilot? It's not just some vague alarm bell going off. It's like having the world's calmest, most experienced co-pilot whispering clear instructions in your ear. Jam that specific radar, drop a FLIR for this incoming missile, and while you're at it, turn 30 degrees to your left. It takes an immense mental load off the pilot in what is, without a doubt, one of the most stressful environments imaginable. But here's the kicker. Spectra isn't just about survival. Its incredible sensitivity means the entire defensive system can be flipped on its head and used as a powerful offensive weapon. This is how the Rafale transforms into a silent, invisible hunter. The objective here is pretty much the holy grail of modern air combat. Find and take out a target without ever giving away your own position. And that means you can't turn on your own powerful radar, because doing that is the electronic equivalent of turning on a giant flashlight in a dark room and yelling, "Hey, I'm over here." So here's the playbook. First, Spectra's receivers just listen. They passively detect the electronic emissions coming from an enemy radar on the ground. Then, using those signals, it can triangulate the target's exact coordinates. And finally, it simply hands off that location data to a long-range missile, like a Scalp cruise missile.
That weapon can then launch and destroy the target, all while the Rafale stays completely silent and invisible. It's a ghost.
Now, this technology is already incredible today, but what really makes it a game changer is that it's not static. Spectra was designed from the very beginning to evolve, making it a true software-defined weapon that's ready for whatever the future of warfare looks like. The system is constantly being updated through new software and hardware standards, like the F4 and the upcoming F5 versions. These upgrades mean it can handle newer and trickier threats, like low-frequency radars that are designed specifically to try and spot stealth aircraft. Because its core is software-defined, its capabilities can essentially be rewritten to counter a new threat almost as soon as it appears on the battlefield. So when you really look at all this, you realize you have to change how you even think about the Rafale. It stops being just a fighter jet. It's a flying, high-speed sensor node. It's a supercomputer with wings, processing gigabytes of data every single second it's in the air. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. What happens when a fighter jet becomes less about the physical machine and more about the power of the computer that's flying it? When it's less about aerodynamics and more about processing power? That single question is completely reshaping the future of air power as we speak.